Champions League exit, the night Chelsea hit rock bottom, 8 goals conceded. 2 scored, a crowd walking out before the final whistle. And now the biggest name in the squad telling the world he is not sure he wants to stay. If you are a Chelsea fan right now, Tuesday night felt like more than just a football result. It felt like a warning sign. Let us be honest with each other for a moment. Most of us knew the Champions League tie against Paris Saint-Germain was already gone before the second leg even started. Losing 5-2 away in Paris meant Chelsea needed to do something extraordinary at Stamford Bridge, but what actually happened was the complete opposite of extraordinary. PSG came to West London, played with complete control, and left with a 3-0 win on the night. That made it 8-2 on aggregate, the worst Champions League knockout defeat in Chelsea's entire history. And then, as if the result was not painful enough, Enzo Fernandez went on television afterwards and said he was not sure about his future at the club. Just like that, a bad night turned into a genuinely worrying week for Chelsea Football Club. 8-2 aggregate score, 6th Premier League position, 8 games left, 1 point behind 5th. How bad was it really? Match breakdown? Pretty bad. Like, historically bad. Chelsea have been in the Champions League knockout stages plenty of times over the years. They have faced some of the biggest clubs in the world. They won the whole thing in 2012 and again in 2021. But this 8-2 aggregate defeat is the worst they have ever suffered in a knockout tie. It equals the 7-1 hammering Bayern Munich gave them back in 2020, and now both sit together as the joint lowest moments in the club's European history. On the night itself, it took just 6 minutes for things to go wrong. Chelsea's makeshift right-back Mamadou Sarr could not control a long ball. Kvicha Kvaratskhelia pounced on the mistake and fired past Robert Sanchez. 5 goals down on aggregate after 6 minutes. The game was already over. Then less than 10 minutes later, Moises Caicedo gave the ball away in the middle of the park. PSG broke at pace, and Bradley Barcola curled one into the top corner from the edge of the box. 2 goals down on the night, 6 down on aggregate, and only 16 minutes had been played. The third goal came from a moment of pure bad luck for Chelsea when a loose ball fell kindly for Seny Mayulu and he stroked it into the top corner. By that point, Stamford Bridge was emptying out. Fans who had stayed hoping to at least see a brave performance were giving up and heading home. It was a miserable sight. When was the last time you left Stamford Bridge early? And did you leave on Tuesday night? Be honest with us in the comments. The Sarr situation, nobody saw coming tactical disaster. To understand why Chelsea's night fell apart so quickly, you need to understand the problem at right back. Reece James was injured and unavailable. Malo Gusto, who was supposed to start, was struck down with illness on the day of the game and never made it onto the pitch. So Liam Rosenior had to find another solution at right back. His answer was to play Mamadou Sarr there. Sarr is a central defender by trade, not a right back. He is only 20 years old. And on a night when Chelsea were already under massive pressure to score goals and keep a clean sheet, Rosenior asked a 20-year-old center back to play in an unfamiliar position against one of the best attacking teams in the world. It did not work. Kvaratskhelia terrorized Sarr from the very first minute. The PSG forward ran at him, went past him, and caused chaos down that right side all evening. The first goal came directly from Sarr being unable to deal with a simple long ball. He could not control it. And the Georgian winger was right there to punish the mistake immediately. 3 Mamadou Sarr, right back out of position, error led to opener, hauled off at halftime, and to top it off, his AFCON winner's medal was also revoked the same night. To make things even worse for the young defender, news broke on the same night that his Africa Cup of Nations winner's medal had been revoked following an overturned result. So in a single evening, Sarr had to deal with a difficult positional role in a high-pressure game, make an error that set the tone for the whole match, get taken off at halftime, and then find out his international trophy had been taken away from him. At only 20 years old, that is an incredibly tough night by any standard. Rosenior acknowledged the situation after the game, saying that making a mistake that early in such a big match can turn the entire night into a struggle mentally. He felt Sarr's experience in previous PSG games gave him the right feel for the occasion, but the gamble did not pay off and it set the wrong tone immediately. Was it fair to throw Sarr in at right back against PSG given the situation? Or did Rosenior have no other choice? Why did Rosenior bring off his best players? The substitution debate. This was the moment that got people talking inside the stadium. Around the hour mark, with Chelsea already well beaten, Rosenior took off Cole Palmer, João Pedro, and Enzo Fernandez all at the same time. The fans who were still there were not happy about it at all. When you are losing 8-2 on aggregate and you take your 3 best players off, it looks like you are giving up completely. But Rosenior pushed back on that idea after the game. Yes, he said, it was an admission that the tie was gone. But more than that, it was a decision based on managing their bodies for the games that actually matter now. His reasoning was straightforward. These players have played over 100 games in 18 months. There has been barely any rest in between because of international football, and the extra travel that comes with international fixtures in South America takes a serious physical toll. You never want to take off your best players when you are 5 goals down in a tie, but I want to make the right decisions for the football club in the long term as well. Liam Rosenior, post-match press conference. He also pointed directly to Reece James as an example of what happens when minutes are not managed carefully. James has missed huge chunks of the season through injury, and Rosenior clearly does not want the same thing to happen to Palmer or Fernandez at this stage of the campaign when every Premier League point is critical. There is also a wider context here that many fans might not be thinking about. The Club World Cup last summer was a big achievement for Chelsea, but competing in that tournament added extra games to an already packed schedule. Every extra game in that competition is another physical and mental drain on the players. Rosenior called it a byproduct of success, which is a fair way to put it. Is his reasoning completely convincing, though? That is up for debate. Some fans will say that you should never give up while you are still on the pitch, no matter how far behind you are. Others will agree that protecting players for the 8 remaining Premier League games is the smarter priority right now. Do you agree with Rosenior taking off Palmer, Fernandez, and Pedro at 3-0 down? Smart squad management, or did it look like he was throwing in the towel too early? The Fernandez bombshell that nobody needed. Future uncertainty. Right when Chelsea fans needed a bit of reassurance, Enzo Fernandez went on television and dropped a comment that sent shockwaves through the fanbase. When asked directly whether he would be at Chelsea next season, his answer was not the confident yes that supporters were hoping for. I do not know. My focus is here for now. We have 8 Premier League matches to play, and the FA Cup. Then the World Cup is coming up, so we will see after that. Enzo Fernandez speaking to ESPN Argentina, we will see after that. 3 words that say so much without actually saying anything specific. Fernandez was not claiming he wants to leave. He was not pointing to any particular club. He was simply being honest that his future beyond this season is an open question in his own mind. But in the context of an 8-2 Champions League humiliation on a night when Chelsea fans were already feeling low, those words landed with real weight. Now let us think about this from his perspective for a moment. He is 24 years old. He has spent the last 3 years at a club going through enormous change. In that time, Chelsea have had multiple managers, different ownership strategies, and constantly shifting squads. He has played over 100 games in 18 months. The club just crashed out of the Champions League in the most embarrassing fashion, and he is now going into a World Cup summer that every South American player dreams about. It would be strange if he was not at least thinking about his future. On paper, Chelsea have control here. Fernandez signed a contract that runs all the way until 2032. That is a very long deal, and it means the club can choose to keep him regardless of what he wants unless they agree to sell. But football does not always follow the logic of contracts. Clubs generally do not want unhappy players in their squad, especially not in the dressing room during a crucial period. If Fernandez makes clear he wants to go, keeping him against his will could create more problems than it solves. 4. Enzo Fernandez, left midfield. Drifted out of the game for large periods. Could not make the impact needed. Started the second leg but withdrawn after an hour along with Palmer and Pedro. Reports circulating suggest that PSG themselves are interested in Fernandez. That would be an uncomfortable situation given what just happened on Tuesday night. There are also suggestions of interest from Real Madrid and clubs in Saudi Arabia. Whether any of this leads anywhere depends heavily on what Chelsea achieve in these last 8 Premier League games. Here is the brutal truth. If Chelsea finish outside the top 5 and miss out on the Champions League, keeping a player like Fernandez becomes dramatically harder. No matter how long his contract runs, a player of his quality will have options. And without European football to offer, Chelsea's pitch to him becomes a lot weaker. Would you be devastated to lose Fernandez this summer? Or do you think his performances this season have been good enough to justify keeping him at any cost? How Rosenior handled the Fernandez question manager response. When a journalist asked Rosenior directly about Fernandez's comments in the post-match press conference, his response was short and focused. He said he had not seen the interview. He said it was hard to speak on speculation after a match. And then he said his focus was entirely on making sure Chelsea get a result against Everton on Saturday. It was a calm and professional answer. He was not dismissive about it, but he also was not going to let the conversation spiral into a transfer debate minutes after a heavy defeat. That is probably the right approach in that moment. There is nothing to be gained from a manager getting into public back and forth with a player about their future on the night of a 3-0 loss. What Rosenior will be judged on now is whether he can quickly shift the mood of this squad and get them pointing in the right direction for the run-in. That is genuinely difficult after a week like this. Chelsea lost badly to PSG. The atmosphere inside Stamford Bridge was awful, key players are getting injured, and now there is a cloud hanging over one of their most important midfielders. The manager also lost his voice during the match from shouting at his players from the touchline. Specifically, there was one moment when Pedro Neto had a good shot that deflected off a teammate, and Rosenior completely lost it at his defenders for not getting back into position quickly enough. It tells you that he cares deeply and is working hard, but caring and results are 2 different things right now. What actually needs to happen? Now, the road ahead. Let us strip away all the noise and focus on what matters for the rest of this season. Chelsea have 8 Premier League games left. They sit 6th in the table, 1 point behind Liverpool in 5th. A top 5 finish is almost certainly enough to secure Champions League football for next season. That is now the mission. Everything else comes after. The FA Cup is still alive and gives Chelsea a genuine shot at a trophy, which matters for morale and for the club's standing. But the league finish is the thing that will define whether this season is considered a success or a failure, and whether the summer ahead is a calm rebuilding job or a full crisis. Getting that top 5 finish also changes the conversation around Fernandez completely. If Chelsea are in the Champions League next season, the case for staying becomes much stronger. The club can say to him, look, we are back in Europe's biggest competition, we are building something, and you are central to what we are doing. That is a very different conversation from the one they would have to have if they finish 7th. Rosenior's challenge is to make his players believe that Tuesday night was a painful moment in a longer journey rather than a sign of where Chelsea really are. He referenced the 2.25 games before this 2-leg tie, reminding people that Chelsea drew 2-2 in Paris in the first leg and put in a strong performance against Aston Villa. That form is still in there, they just need to access it consistently. How confident are you that Chelsea can finish in the top 5 from here? Give us your honest prediction for where they end up this season. The bigger picture at this club perspective. One thing Rosenior said in the press conference that deserves more attention was his comment about this being a byproduct of success. He was talking about player fatigue from the Club World Cup, but there is a wider version of that idea worth thinking about. Chelsea, under the current ownership, have spent more money than almost any club in football history. They have brought in enormous amounts of young talent from all over the world. They have gone through multiple managers trying to find the right formula, and what they have right now is a squad that is very young, quite talented in certain areas, but not yet the finished article. They are a work in progress. The 8-2 aggregate defeat to PSG showed that gap very clearly. PSG were better organized, more experienced, more clinical, and more composed in every single moment that mattered. Chelsea made individual errors when the pressure was on. Their young players were exposed by a team that simply knew how to win these kinds of games at this level. That does not mean this squad cannot become something special in time. Reece James, when fit, gives them quality and leadership at right back. Cole Palmer is one of the best young attacking players in the Premier League. Fernandez, when he is playing well, controls games from midfield. These are real assets, but the margin for error when you are facing the best teams in Europe is very small. Chelsea are learning that lesson in the hardest possible way right now. Caicedo and the midfield problem individual performances. One player who did not get as much attention as Sarr in terms of criticism but probably deserved more was Moises Caicedo. He gave the ball away in the middle of the pitch to directly lead to PSG's second goal on the night. That made it 2-0, barely 15 minutes in, and killed whatever small hope Chelsea had of finding some kind of footing in the game. 3. Moises Caicedo, central midfield, struggled to compete with PSG's technical midfielders and gave the ball away for the visitors' second goal. Ended the game playing at right back after Chalobah was stretchered off. Like Sarr, Caicedo has played an enormous amount of football this season. The physical and mental demands of playing week in, week out for a club fighting on multiple fronts, plus the travel back to South America for international breaks, is clearly taking a toll. Rosenior's point about managing minutes is not just about protecting players from injury, it is also about making sure they have the sharpness and focus to make the right decisions when it counts. A fresh Caicedo is a dominant, powerful, intelligent midfield presence. A tired Caicedo switches off for half a second in the middle of the pitch and hands a world-class team a goal on a plate. That is the reality of where this squad is right now in terms of energy levels. The Trevoh Chalobah injury cloud. As if the night could not get any worse, Trevoh Chalobah had to be stretchered off with an injury before the end of the game. Chelsea had already used all 5 of their substitutes at that point, which meant they had to finish the match with 10 men. PSG, to their credit, did not try to take advantage of the situation, and the game ended there. Rosenior said after the game that Chalobah was very worried himself when he came off, but the medical team were hoping it might not be as serious as it first appeared. Scans were scheduled for the following day. Given that Chelsea are already without Reece James at right back and were forced to play Sarr out of position as a direct result, losing another defender to injury for any length of time would be a real setback for the run-in. Every injury in a squad, this stretched matters. Rosenior is clearly very aware of this, which is exactly why he made the decisions he made about Palmer, Pedro, and Fernandez in the second half. Does Chelsea's injury situation concern you heading into these 8 remaining league games? Which players do you most need to stay fit? 8 games to save the season. Tuesday night was painful. It was embarrassing in parts. It raised serious questions about where this club is heading and whether some of its most important players will even be here next season. But the season is not over. 8 Premier League games remain. The FA Cup is still alive, and 1 point separates Chelsea from the Champions League places. This squad has real quality in it. Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez when he is fully engaged, Pedro Neto, Liam Delap, Joao Pedro. On their best days, these are players who can hurt anyone in this league. The question is whether Liam Rosenior can get them to string enough of those best days together in the weeks ahead. The shed end has seen dark times before and come out the other side. Real Madrid away in 2012, Munich 2012. This club knows how to respond. The spirit is still there. It just needs to find its way back onto the pitch, get behind the team, make Stamford Bridge loud again, and let us see what these players are really made of when the pressure is genuinely on. Come on, you Blues, drop your thoughts in the comments.